On September 14th, the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, approved the release of an emergency payment in the amount of $1 billion to help Ukraine pull itself out of its fragile and shaky financial position. This money, which is part of a $17.5 billion aid package and loan from the IMF, had been withheld for almost a year, owing to the Ukrainian government's failure to adequately tackle its corruption and budget issues. The positive decision of the IMF was in response to the introduction of the e-declaration system for civil servants in Ukraine and the inception of a number of other anti-corruption initiatives. IMF Managing Director Christine Lagarde said in a related press release that, quote, "Ukraine is showing welcome signs of recovery, notwithstanding a difficult external environment and a severe economic crisis," end quote. President of Ukraine Petro Poroshenko welcomed the IMF's decision, stating that it represents validation on the part of the international community of the positive changes taking place in Ukraine, as well as hope for the future. He also noted that the decision of the IMF sends a strong message to Russia, which had tried to block the release of these funds to Ukraine at the meeting of the IMF Executive Board. In contrast with earlier times, when IMF credits were used in Ukraine for plugging holes in the state budget, and during the presidency of Viktor Yanukovych were stolen in various corruption schemes, a significant part of this current credit was designated for bolstering the gold reserves of the Ukrainian National Bank in order to stabilize the Ukrainian currency and to support budding economic growth in the country. In accordance with the old adage, live by the sword, die by the sword, on September 19th, Yevgeni Zhilin, the former head of the extremist pro-Kremlin terrorist organization OPLOT in Kharkiv, was shot and killed in what appears to have been a hit. This happened in a swanky restaurant in a Moscow suburb. OPLOT and Zhilin are notorious for having organized groups of thugs, the so-called Titushki, who terrorized protesters and journalists in Kharkiv and Kyiv during the 2014 Revolution of Dignity. An ethnic Russian born in Kharkiv, Zhilin had a criminal record and served 3 years in prison for attempted murder. As leader of OPLOT, he was an active participant in the anti-Maidan movement. He was suspected of setting fire to cars, kidnapping and torture, and the embezzlement of state funds in the amount of 100 million hryvnias. Zhilin fled Ukraine in February 2014 and had been on the international most wanted list from July 2015. When war broke out in eastern Ukraine, OPLOT provided support to the Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republics in the Donbass. Russian police are said to be searching for Zhilin's killer. On September 12th, Muslims of the world celebrated Eid al-Adha, or Feast of the Sacrifice, one of two main Islamic holidays which marks the end of the Hajj, or pilgrimage to Mecca, a pilgrimage that all Muslims are expected to make at least once in their lifetime. During this holiday, thousands of Muslim faithful traditionally gather in the holy city of Mecca. Those who cannot embark on such a pilgrimage celebrate by visiting family and friends, attending prayer services at mosques, and distributing the meat from sacrificial goats or camels, also sheep or bulls, to the poor. Eid al-Adha is also known as Kurban Bayrama. In Ukraine, during Kurban Bayrama celebrations this year, Azerbaijani Muslims in Zhytomyr again showed their support for Ukraine's battle against its enemy aggressor by giving sacrificial holiday meat, as well as fruits, to Ukrainian army soldiers in the anti-terrorist operation zone, or ATO. Presenting these gifts, Raj Hasimov, the head of the Zhytomyr branch of the United Diaspora of Ukrainian Azerbaijanis, said, quote, "The pain of the Ukrainian nation is our pain. This is why we are even ready to take up arms and fight together with Ukrainian army soldiers," end quote. The representative of the Ukrainian Army's 95th Marine Brigade expressed thanks for these gifts and stated that his brigade contains many Muslims who are fighting for Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity, and that it is a great emotional boost knowing that the Ukrainian Army enjoys the support of various groups of people living in Ukraine. The Ukrainian nation is full of good-hearted people and special and creative individuals. This fact is very poignantly exemplified in the human stories stemming from the war in Ukraine. Particularly moving are the inspiring stories of Ukrainian volunteers who devote themselves to and direct their talents toward defending their country in the war-torn Donbass region. Until very recently, Marina Pryatko was a world-class hairstylist, a stylist to the stars, working in one of the most prestigious hair salons in Kyiv. Her clients included many TV personalities. but she gave up this life to join the Ukrainian army. In June 2016, Marina enlisted in the army for a 3-year tour of duty. She serves in the Army Communications Department in Avdiivka in the Donbass. But in her free time, Marina gives the most modern, Western-style haircuts to her fellow soldiers. Her aim is to impart dignity to people who are in the undignified situation of fighting a war that Ukraine never wanted. She tries to cut and style the soldiers' hair in such a way that it will look good and stylish even after they have taken off their helmets. Her efforts make a real and positive difference to the soldiers, some of whom have never experienced such special treatment in their lives, and who generally have few opportunities for pursuing personal dignities in frontline conditions. Marina hopes to open up her own hair salon one day, but in her own words, only after the victory of the Ukrainian army in the war and the end of her army service. I'm Tania Stech, and this was Ukraine in the News.